I'm just going to warn you. This chick talks a lot, so might not be able to shut her up. So I don't know if that stool is yours. I know you adjusted yours. I don't know if this one's yours. That one's higher, so I'm not sure.
Well, do you feel like you're shorter than me, so that means that I'm higher than you?
No, I just I think this was yours.
Okay, well, I don't really like to be really tall anyway.
So because
Switchies.
she spent like all of her service adjusting her stool just right.
I did.
So I just had to make sure. So yes, I 100% agree. She is the better looking of us two, and she's by far the better half. So I'm going to put these communion cups like over here to the side, and then we'll get them. I don't want to put them on the bench because Heath might sit on them. So, and I have a feeling that in a fight Heath could take me.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, so I don't want to chance that.
He would hit you with the drumsticks. He's really good with those. I was watching him over there.
He is. So, I feel like I need to start off this though with sharing this. With us sharing our story does not mean in any way whatsoever that we feel like we have it all together. Not even close. Nor do we feel like we have like the perfect marriage.
No.
It's far from it. And we especially do not feel like we have the secret to parenting.
No.
So if that's what you came here for, I am sorry. I apologize. If you want Pastor Mark to give you some money out of his own pocket, we'll do that as a sincere apology for you coming with those expectations.
So probably on the way home, you all are going to think and like look at yourselves and each other and say, holy crap, those Lloyds are really crazy. And you're probably going to be right.
And you may on your way home go like, we don't have it so bad after all.
Yeah.
And truthfully, if that is what happens, I will consider this a success. Because we are going to be honest, we are going to share our story, and it's our story, but I feel like the universal is often hidden, like in the particular. So hopefully that as we share, that will happen.
Since none of us know what that means, I'm going to steal one of his comments and say, can you put some narrative around that?
I guess it could be considered like a platitude. So saying the universal is in the particular, it's from my personal experience, especially when people are telling a testimony or telling a story, that the more personal they get with that, the more relatable it is. And it's just funny how that works. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you ever been in a service where someone's giving a testimony and you like leave feeling like just totally inadequate? You're like, that's great for them, but it's like, it's great that their marriage is saved, but yeah, my marriage is still in shambles. Or it's great, for their financial situation, but it's great that God gave them the numbers to the lottery, but I'm still struggling here. But a lot of times with testimonies, we want to share like just all the good stuff, which is awesome, and you should. That's praise reports. But two, it's like just from my experience, the deeper you go and the more personal you get, even though it's our story, it will become extremely relatable for you guys. I say this, John, I don't know if since perfect timing, I can hear. Well, it's not because Mark Peterson's talking to you, but I can hear like an echo, like a ring. But I don't know. I know we get that every now and then. It's usually something else is plugged in. But in saying the universal is in the particular is as we share this and as we share our story, hopefully it's extremely relatable to you.
Yeah. So basically, that's what we're here to do today. We want to share our story, and within stories there are chapters, and so we are going to share our story in chapters. But since we can't get through like a whole lot of chapters, we're going to start with 4.
Actually, 5.
So what 5?
Yeah, I added one. I added a chapter. Chapter 1. Zimzum. Zimzum, yes.
That's not the chapter that we agreed on.
No, I told you I added it.
I know, but now you're going to have to take time and explain to everybody what Zimzum means.
I will do it really quick.
You don't do anything very quick.
Well, it's no question what side you guys are on. I'm going to do this really quick. So Zimzum is actually a Hebrew word. Zimzum is it's a Hebrew word that the ancient rabbis they would sit around and they would talk about how before there was anything else created, before there was anything else, there was just God. Side note. One, I can see why this may seem like it's going to be a long story,
yes.
But stick with me. Another side note, obviously the ancient rabbis knew how to throw a party, right? Just sitting around talking about before anybody was created, how it was just God. But, so this word Zimzum is a term that they would use for God making space for all of creation. So at the beginning there was just God. But for there to be more than just God, God had to kind of do this divine contraction. Like there had to be space that wasn't God for there to be something that wasn't God, something of us. So God had to make space. And I love words. So I'll come across a new word and it'll stick with me and I'll focus on it. So especially words like this, like that nobody else knows, like Zimzum. So I find this to be, it's just interesting to me that Zimzum, meaning how God, there was just God and then he made space for all of us, for all of creation. When we welcome somebody else into our lives, when we come into relation with somebody, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, any kind of relationship, you have to create space for that person. There's a part of you that has to decrease to make room. So part of it was, first it was just me, and it could be all about me, like center of gravity. But then when I met Julie, I had to make the choice to create space for her so that we could come together, and then it can't just be about me anymore. It's about that. And you guys did the same thing. Like when we came here to Fairlawn, you guys made a choice whether to make space for the Aycocks and for the Lloyds.
It's like when you finally meet the person that you're supposed to spend the whole rest of your life with, and you're like, oh, I finally met the one. And then you're laying next to them in bed at night, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I end up with this crazy person?
Is that what you do?
No, that's not, I'm just saying that's like what somebody else might do.
Yeah, somebody, yeah.
Not me.
I didn't think you did that. But no, it's exactly like that. I mean, that's the mystery in the whole thing with relationships, right? It's not just the good, it's the good, the bad, the unknown, and just living life together. Creating this space, this potential, this promise, these possibilities of life together. I came across this statistic recently, and it blew my mind. So you guys know the dating site Match.com? Like all the married people, hopefully you're like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
What's that?
But no, there's probably the biggest dating online site, Match.com. And this statistic blew my mind, that every month that website, Match.com, gets 17 million visitors. A month. 17 million people signing on. Why? Because of the possibilities of finding the one. The mystery in that. I find it interesting all the time. I'll have friends or know people that they're going through a divorce, which is very tragic and very emotional. And they're like, I'll never get married again. And then like 2 months later, they're like, I met the one. It's like, why do we do that? It's because inside of us if we're created after God's image, something inside of us, we have the desire and the need to Zimzum, to create space. We are created for fellowship, for relationship with each other. Okay,
and that brings us to what was supposed to be chapter 1. There's plenty of fish in the sea.
So, with this, I feel like now I need to really emphasize that this is in no way we're saying this is how it should be done.
Why?
I just mean like the story about us like meeting and getting together, like it just happened really quick, and I'm just saying like maybe you shouldn't like rush. We're not. I mean,
Just stop
it worked
talking.
for
Why,
us.
can you explain that, please? Because I don't understand that.
I would go into explaining it, but I'm looking at the clock, and it's really like we just got so much time to get through these chapters. So we'll we'll just move forward.
Okay, we're going to talk about that later, though. Okay. So anyway, so we actually did meet on a website called Plenty of Fish.
See, like that. That's what I'm talking about. Like we probably shouldn't like tell everybody, hey guys, y'all want to meet the one? You should go to a dating website. We shouldn't say that.
What? Why can't people meet online, though? I mean, do you want them to meet in a bar, in the club, meet some babes in the church?
You know, I bet you if we took that and put that on the marquee out there on the sign, like, come to Fairlawn Church, like, meet some babes. I bet we'd be packed. I'm just saying, think about it.
Hey, we might be onto something.
Yeah. I'm just a thought, Pastor Mark. Put that, make a note, put it in your pocket.
FairlawnBabes.com.
No.
Yeah.
Too far.
Yeah. Okay, so, wait, that's your turn, right? Yeah, you were searching. I wasn't searching.
So,
yeah.
when Julie and I just, when we met, like, we were both at, like, these, I would say these kind of, like, rock bottom of our lives. We both have just gotten out of a marriage where our spouses were unfaithful. So, we had a lot of damage. And us coming, like, when we met, like, there was a big time trust issues. I'll say that. And just a lot of hurts and a lot of pains with that. So so we were dealing with all that, but we were still searching.
He was searching. I was not searching per se.
No, you were searching. You wouldn't sign up for a dating website if you weren't searching, right?
I was searching 3 months prior, which was in April, and then I met him in July, because I had been married for 14, well, not married for 14 years, but I've been with the same person for 14 years. And so in that time frame, it's, you know, you have, your lives at that point just become all mushed together, and they're like a yarn ball, and you don't know where's what and who's who. So
What's a yard ball?
A ball of yarn.
Yarn
like
ball.
Everything's like that.
I'm trying to figure out what a yard ball is.
So you don't know like who you are after like that long a period of time. So what I did was I joined a bunch of different websites, because I was like, how is there going to be people? Because I don't go out.
That sounds terrible to phrase it that way. Okay.
Oh, how did you meet people? The same way I did.
God.
No, it was not. So I had been on a couple of dates, and I'd met a few people within that time frame, because I separated in April and I met Jimmy in July. But between April and July, I was just like, it's exhausting. I don't know if any of you all have been single and tried dating, but it's exhausting. Like it's like tiring. And I just at that point was ready to just kind of be within myself and not have to think about dating and making other people happy. And so I looked at my phone one day, and I saw that he had messaged me, and I was like, ugh. And then I saw his face, and I was like,
it must have been terrible, some really good-looking, gorgeous guy messaging you.
Well, I mean, my friend of mine who I'd actually met on one of those dating sites, who actually turned out to be a very good friend, he was like, just go out with him. You never know what'll happen. And so I did.
And
yeah, you can clap for that. That was a really good decision. I've thanked my friends since then.
And for me, anyways, it was pretty much instant chemistry. It really was. I mean, once I got past the whole, like, correcting my grammar, this is no joke. We started messaging the first day, and she sent me this message. She goes, listen, I'm sure you are an intelligent guy. She just said, I have this pet peeve, like just bad grammar and punctuation. And then she went on to tell me through the messages, like, all the times where I used the wrong there, and where I didn't use a comma. And I'm like, this is text messaging. I mean, and it was crazy because like no one's ever done that before, and I'm just like, part of me is just like, who the heck does this chick think she is? And then there was another part that was like, I got to know this chick more. I got to know more about her. So it was this instant chemistry. She was funny. She was extremely sarcastically funny, which is a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm. She learned everything from me.
She would complete my jokes, and then she would tell me like when she didn't feel like my jokes were funny, and there was no like fake laughing from this girl, and believe it or not, that was like extremely refreshing to have that.
Yeah, he's refreshed all the time.
I know this is like your first time doing this, and so you're new, but I just like this part of the message. This is like the very serious part of the message.
I'm being serious.
Okay. So like I was saying, there was like this instant spark, and I feel like with like love, there's a bunch of different kinds of love, and there's this what I call like this spark love. It's like when you first meet and you feel like you're falling in love, and you're like, man, this girl or this person is worth making space for. That's spark love.
It's worth zimzumming for.
This person is worth zimzumming for. So there's a spark kind of love that people go through, and that's the desire, the passion, the romance part of it. You know, like where you feel like your heart's being hijacked, where all you can think about is this person. Anybody ever went through that? Like everybody does. Like we're created with that. It's called limerence. It's this emotional response that happens within us. This rush of adrenaline. Our body releases dopamine. And in fact, like when you're falling in love and when you're meeting someone like that, and it's the same chemical reaction goes on in your brain that the drug cocaine produces. So it's called limerence. And you know, I've counseled with people and talked to people, and something that I hear a lot of times is people say, you know, when we first met, we would talk on the phone for like hours. We'd be like 4 hours. We'd be talking on the phone, and now it's like I try to call her, and then she just texts back, "Just text me," which is a true story. It happens, and it's just like I want to get back to that. The problem is it's not going to happen because you were going through what's called limerence at that time. It's something that God puts in us that does so when we first meet somebody, especially if it's a romantic relationship, it's where we want to get to know everything about them. And that was on full display in our relationship. We would ask each other all these questions. I remember, Mary Beth, this one time I asked her, what's your favorite donut? And Stacy, that was the first time Julie ever lied to me.
It wasn't a lie. I didn't eat donuts at the time.
Yeah, she wasn't eating donuts at that moment. I asked her. She said, I don't eat donuts. And she was like, why do you want to know that? And I was like, I just want to know everything about you. Bavarian cream is her favorite donut, by the way.
They're so good.
But it's this thing that you go through called limerence, this chemical, this stuff that's going on in your brain. And they have done research. Researchers have found out that the human body can sustain that state for roughly 6 to 9 months, which I find extremely interesting because that just so happens to be the amount of months that we dated before we got married, 9.
Yes, and that's true because I had to count it up last night. When he told me it was 9 months, I was like, no, it wasn't. And I was like, yeah, it was. It was August, September, October, November, December, January, April. Yeah.
She was in a rush to tie this guy down, you know? You got a good thing, you got to keep it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got me. All right, so that brings us to the next chapter, chapter 3. I didn't sign up for this. But I didn't really know at the time that I was signing up for marrying a firefighter / pastor because when we got married and he proposed, he was a firefighter. But then on April 13th, which was like 30 days later because he proposed on Valentine's Day, we were in our pastor's office getting married, and he was a firefighter, new youth pastor. So,
yeah, and Guys, check this out. Michael, you're going to find this very romantic. For our honeymoon, we walked out of our pastor's office and into the youth room where I shared my first message in 12 years to a handful of teenagers. I know, I'm the romantic type. That was our honeymoon. And there's room full of these teenagers, which, by the way, they weren't too happy with me because they're actually rather quite mad because they had to sit there in a room and listen to me share this lesson instead of going outside and just playing manhunt the whole time.
Yeah, they were really, really mad about that.
They were. But here's the thing, like, I loved it.
I hated it. I hated it. It's true.
So, it is true.
It is. I'm not going to lie. I'm
so
not gonna lie.
Joey asked me one time, she's like, hey, is firefighting, when we were engaged, is like firefighting the best job you ever had? And I said, no. In fact, youth pastoring was. And then she goes, I would support you if you ever wanted to get back into it. And I was like, you have no idea what you're saying. Yeah. Because she didn't grow up in church. So a few days later, a friend of mine that was a pastor of a church on Facebook, of all places, put a post, and it said, hey, what would it take for you to come and be our youth pastor? And it was like, oh, it's a sign. So she was excited, but she really didn't know what she was getting herself into, but she was also willing to make the sacrifice because she knew it was something that.
Yeah, he tried to warn me. He was like, no, I don't really think that you understand. It's like, phone calls in the middle of the night, crazy teenagers. I'm like, listen, it's what you want to do. You'll be happy.
So you want to put some narrative around that story and what was going on at that time?
I will.
So this is the part of the thing, like, where we're saying, like, we're just going to, like, the universal is kind of the particulars, like, Julie's going to share, like, it was, just keep in mind, we just got married, newlyweds, blended family, okay, 3 kids.
I hadn't really found, I knew who Jesus was, but we weren't like, like close. We weren't like.
We weren't bros.
We weren't like, I'll call you later kind of people, like, yet, but.
So this was like kind of the starting with her walk, too.
Yes. So when he started to do the youth, I had also started working at that same church in their school as a first grade teacher. It was a lot. And we were dealing with some stuff like at home as well with like custody stuff, like with our kids. And it was really stressful because I was pretty naive when I met Jimmy. Like, I had a fairly normal, like, non-crazy, like, life. He had all the crazy. But when we started the youth, I was just really constantly stressed out. I was dealing with a lot of stuff at home. I was dealing with, like, becoming a new teacher and little people and then teenagers at night. And it got to a point where I hated it so much. I was taking, like, wine in Yeti cups just to get through Wednesday nights with the youth. And then
just to be clear, like, you don't, like, there's not like a cup with wine in it, right? Like here at Fairlawn, right?
No. No, I don't. I actually stopped drinking a whole lot of wine because I felt like I was using it as a crutch to just get through, that moment in time. And so it continued to grow. So it just got to a really crazy point where youth, I knew immediately, was not going to be something that I was going to be about.
So I think we have, I don't know what, we skipped some pictures. I think we have a picture of when we first got together here that I wanted to show you guys. John, it was, I said, you guys look like y'all are in your 20s. We weren't, but I wanted to show you this just because where you guys can see, like, how much, like, you guys have aged me. Just kidding.
Aww.
And then we have a picture of the youth group.
Aww.
So that was,
he was so good at it, you guys. Like, I hated it so much, but he was so good. He took that youth group from like 5 kids to sometimes we would have like 80 kids on a Friday night. Plus, we had more sometimes, but the average was like between 50 and 80. I hated it, but he was so good.
So I want to put this out, like love, any kind of love, like love that's going to last always includes sacrifice. It always does. You know, people talk about, you know, oh, I want to find the one, and they want like all the good times and all of that, but no one's like when they go out to meet someone, even in any kind of relationship, is like, man, I cannot wait to sacrifice in this relationship.
Right.
But it's so important. Like nothing changes the space in between you and the other person like sacrifice. You know, it would have the other person know, hey, this person is willing to die for me. This person is willing to make sacrifices for me. And it's so powerful. But at the same time, when you start to make sacrifices, it's easy to start this mental scoreboard of like, okay, I sacrificed this, this, and this. I haven't noticed you sacrificing anything. And when you do that, you get into this place of just really just total destruction. So it's so important to throw that scorecard away. But, you know, it does take sacrifice if love's going to last. Like sacrificing and hanging out with a bunch of teenagers, even though you hate it because your husband loves it.
Yeah, but, you know, you also sacrificed because after, I don't know how long we did it before, but you did resign because I didn't like it as much as I did not like it.
I did do that. It got to this point. We were having youth on Friday nights. We were running on average around 80 teenagers, and but Julie got a place where she would come on church on Sunday, but not on Fridays, because it was at times seemed like kind of total chaos, and we had some amazing youth leaders. I don't even know, like we would have probably, who knows where we'd be if it wasn't for those youth leaders.
Because some are actually here,
a good amount of
and
them
they come here.
Are a part of this church. But it got to the point it was like either that or my marriage. So either the thing that I love doing so much, and I can't believe I'm back doing that after not being away for 12 years, or my marriage. And I was like, well, if I don't have my marriage, then this isn't going to mean anything. So I went in and I went to the pastor and I said, hey, I can't do this. Julie hates it. It's weighing us down, and so I'm going to have to resign. And I came home that night and I told her about it, and she started bawling, and she tried to get me to call him back and say, no, I've changed my mind. I was like, no, it's going to happen. So there was sacrifice made with that. That resignation turned into maybe a little over a month like break, and then we got right back into it. But you know, when you take that spark and you take substance and they come together, the results just electric. And there's in my favorite book, it has to be my favorite book in the Bible, I'm pretty sure. It changes sometimes, but Song of Songs, I love it. Song of Songs 6:3, it says, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. And you're like, okay, which is it? Is like he hers, or is she his? The answer is yes. Both are true, because it's a give and take. It's both of them giving first, both of them sacrificing first, both of them serving each other first. It's the other always first, without the scorecard.
Yeah. So when we decided, when he decided he was going to leave that, it was kind of like he sacrificed, because he gave up a paycheck to start something completely new, which...
Yeah, this was later, after we went back, and then we ended up, we felt like God was moving us to something else, so, yeah.
No, we did the home group.
Yes, so that's the next chapter.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying, but
Okay.
you sacrificed, you stepped down from the youth,
Yes.
and you sacrificed a paycheck to do something different, right?
Very true. So chapter 4, home is where your church is. Home is where your church is, and this is, Rachel made this together, and you may look for you, and you might be in this, you might not be. So nothing against you if you're not in this, except Michael, we intentionally didn't put you in this. Just kidding. But yeah, so before there was Blueprint, there was home group.
I loved the home group.
We both did. I mean, it was different, it was easy, it was family,
It was my
and
favorite.
all we did is we invited like all these people that we had a relationship with, that we were friends with, family with, and that we had chose to zim with. And we invited them over to our house on Friday nights, and Julie cooked dinner, and we'd sit around the table or wherever, because a lot of times there wasn't a seat around the table, or wherever you could find a seat, and we just fellowshiped. I mean, sure, I would share a small devotional on Friday nights, but I noticed most of the ministry was being done during dinner time. I mean, guards were dropped, people would talk about things they wouldn't talk about in church, and they would just share and just be genuine, and it was just amazing. People's guards came down, they felt the freedom to share, it was natural, it was organic, and it was our favorite.
It was our favorite. It was just, there's something about like having a bunch of people that, is your family in a house, like all squishy together. I mean, I think at one point we had like 30 people in the
30
house.
plus people in a 1,500 square foot home.
It felt a lot bigger when there weren't so many people in it, but it was good times. It was just definitely like probably one of my favorite times in ministry.
And there's some people that's in this room that were there during the home group. So, but from this home group, Blueprint was birthed. And the last thing, we definitely were not planning on doing, our goal was not to start a church. In fact, we tried very, very hard to not call it a church. And funny thing happened though, when we would try to describe it to people, we'd be like, it's not a church. This is it's like a gathering of fellow believers, or a gathering of people who love Jesus, or a community of Christians. What then the person that we're trying to explain it to would ask is, so like a church? Like, yeah, like a church. So we kind of gave up on that. But it was more than church.
It wasn't like our other church, which we did Sundays. This was done all on Saturday nights, and we did it not at a home, but we did it at a church.
At a church.
But I want to add just a little narrative to why we were so against calling it a church, is because the circumstance that we came from was just very. It took a lot of energy from us, and it just wasn't the best circumstance to be in. And I probably would have never went back to a church because of the hurt that I experienced there. So for us, when we decided to start the Blueprint, it was something where we wanted people to feel Jesus, but have to not feel it in a church environment where they felt like they had to be like a certain way, or feel a certain way, or look a certain way.
A lot of people that were hurt in church. Would come, and we were called we were called the anti-church before, and there was something that was narrative out there about it's a cult, which actually it's funny how God uses that, because then people's like, well, I got to check this place out, and then they would come. So it was pretty cool to see that. But truthfully, that's how church is supposed to be. It's and I saw some pictures there from Blueprint with it, but that's how it should be. It should be people looking out for one another. It should be family. When you come in here, the people that are in front of you, behind you, to the side of you, you should be thinking of them like family. And in fact, Acts chapter 4, verse 32, it talks about the New Testament church and how it functioned. And it says this, it says, "Now the multitude of those who believed were of one heart and one soul. Neither did anyone say that any of the things he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common." I strongly feel like a church, it should function like a family. A church should look like a home.
Yeah. But not on Saturday nights.
It doesn't say anything about being on Saturday nights in the book of Acts. Yeah, no. But that does bring us to our fifth and final chapter, searching for Sunday.
Which I do not like the title of this chapter, and I've told him that last night, because I was not searching for Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us were searching for Sunday. We actually were enjoying having service on Saturday nights, and Sunday was like our family day, and so we definitely weren't searching for Sunday. It's more like Sunday found us. But I still remember the phone call that I got from Pastor Mark, and he had just spoken at this church. He's the guest speaker at this church. Maybe you've heard of it. It's on Fairlawn Baptist Church. I don't know, maybe? Sound familiar? And he told me that the current pastor was about to retire and asked him if he was interested in becoming the new pastor. And Mark said he told him, said, well, I'm involved in this other ministry called Blueprint, and shared a little bit about what Blueprint was and what we were doing. And then he said that Pastor Mike had this great idea, and he said, okay, that sounds awesome. How about you and Jimmy come and you do a co-pastor type situation? And I'm going to tell you the truth. I wasn't sure what to think when Mark was telling me this. One, like, this guy has told me some pretty crazy stuff, so I was just like, okay, all right, Mark. And so nobody even laughed at that, because they know it's true. And so Pastor Mark invited me to lunch with Mike and Linda, and we went to Cracker Barrel, and we sat there and we talked about all kinds of things. We talked about family, we talked about life, we talked about Fairlawn, we talked about Blueprint, and we discussed the vision of both. And the cool thing is, it was like the visions just lined up, and it just seemed perfect. And until we got here and you guys voted us as the new pastors, I think I was like waiting for a catch. Because this is just, but you know what, that's how God works. Like, when God's in it, it does seem too good to be true. Like, he just puts all the pieces together. So it was pretty cool how all of that happened.
Yeah, I remember when Jimmy mentioned it to me that Mark had talked to him about becoming a co-pastor at Fairlawn, and I was extremely nervous because of, the history within the church and how it was taking a lot of time. Like, he would spend every Saturday, literally, like from sun up to sundown, and sometimes into Sunday, like, focused on the Blueprint. So it took a lot of time from our marriage. It's still fairly new. I mean, we've not been married 8 years yet. So I was nervous how it would affect that and the time, which still it takes a lot of time. But it's turned out to be, it's really, I don't think that you could have put two ministries together and have them fit more perfectly than Blueprint and Fairlawn, because what we did at the Blueprint was already being done here at Fairlawn. We had this fellowship of people who we were having food together, we were having worship together, we were just being together, and then we had the outreach, the Helping Hand, and we did a lot with the Helping Hand while we were at Blueprint. And when Jimmy told me about what they were doing here with like the Bridge Club, and I was just like, wow, that is so like amazing. Like, that's basically what we're doing, but they're doing it on Sundays. So it's turned out to be really an amazing thing that happened here. It was kind of like electric, I guess.
Worth the zim-zumming
for.
Worth
zim-zumming for sure.
So I remember when we first got here at the beginning, somebody said, because when we started, we had people from Blueprint come here and Fairlawn, and we weren't really sure how it would work out. And we kind of said we had this name of just there was a lot of people that had church hurt, us trying pretty hard sometimes not to even call Blueprint a church. And somebody shared with me, said, well, what you did is you just took a group of people that don't like church and you put them together with a group of people that love church. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's exactly what we did. Mm-hmm. And it has been such a joy and so amazing to watch all of that play out and just everybody become family. Mm-hmm. In a way that there's no way the Acocks or the Lloyds or any of you or any of us even could have made that happen. It was just totally a God thing.
Yeah. So much zim-zumming all over the place.
A lot of zim-zumming.
It's like...
So that brings us to chapter 6.
Chapter 6, which we did not have last night, but let's go.
Yes. So this morning I sent Rachel a text and I said, hey, we're going to have chapter 6. Mm-hmm. I didn't tell Julie about it. She found out during first service.
Yeah.
A whole lot of wine. Chapter 6, a whole lot of wine. So you remember this one time that Jesus was, before he was real famous, and before the rumors, and before people were out to kill him. Him and his disciples were in Cana, and they were at this wedding. And they were just hanging out at this wedding. And during this wedding, they ran out of wine. And I've heard this preached and talked about in so many different ways. It's like, that's not a big deal. Okay, it's not, they ran out of wine. But wine was extremely important during those days. Because, one, the scarcity of water. Water would get contaminated easily. So a lot of times they couldn't count on water. So wine was extremely important, and it also symbolized life. And you had these people getting married, and it symbolized new life and them coming together. So I've heard it say like this was like a stepping stone miracle. Totally not true. I do not feel like that at all. Jesus was just hanging out at the party. His mom came to him and said, hey, the host, they ran out of wine. Jesus, he said to his mom, he said, what does that have to do with me? I think we skip over that a lot of times. And we're just like, it was Jesus saying, not my problem. But it was so much more than that. He said, what does it have to do with me? Everything. Everything to do with him. Mary tells the workers, says, hey, just listen to him. Jesus is like, okay, which is proof that even the Messiah listens to his mama. And they took these 6 stone pots full of water. This was not drinking water, by the way. This was hand washing water. It was for purification. And he took 6 of them. Now, this is what I found very interesting. You know how much for a regular wedding, how much wine they would typically have at a wedding, just in general, in Jewish tradition? At the most, 30 gallons. At the most. You know how many gallons each one of those pots were? About 30 gallons. So here they are. They're halfway through this wedding. If they ran out of wine, they're going to have to cut this thing off. These people would still be married. It's not like their marriage is revoked. But I find it interesting that Jesus' first miracle was to extend fellowship. Jesus' first miracle was performed so that, people could continue zimzuming. People could continue building relationships and building fellowship. So when Jesus says, what does this have to do with me? I think part of this is missing because we can't see the facial expressions of Mary and of Jesus and maybe of the disciples. Like when Mary just walked away and said, just listen to him. They're probably like, whoa, we got told. But he says, what does this have to do with me? Everything. Because our God is a God of fellowship and a God of relationships. Took these 6 water pots. Regular wedding, they would have only needed 1. They were halfway done with this wedding. He filled 6 of them. He spent like 180 gallons of wine. They could have had 6 more weddings. Like I feel like it's like one of those Fairlawn like potlucks where like they're like Miss Denise is like trying to push meatloaf on all of us. Like take it home. They're probably like putting wine in containers and just take it home. But his first miracle wasn't just to extend fellowship. It was to extend fellowship to the point of where he provided more than enough. Yeah. We serve a God that provides more than enough. So you're here right now and you're just like, I would be okay. I would be fine with just barely getting by because right now I'm not even doing that. Well, just saying, if you are saying that prayer, God, just help me get by, He wants to do more than just help you get by. He is a God of more than enough. And I hope by listening to this story, like, the main thing I hope you get from it is like God uses imperfect people. He uses people with marriages that are less than perfect. He uses people that put wine in a Yeti to take it while their husband's teaching a bunch of teenagers. Don't take notes from this, Rachel. But God meets us in our imperfect state. And He co-labors with us. And He becomes more than enough. So I want to say thank you for zimzumming with us. You didn't even know what that meant before you came here. And I just felt like it was just appropriate. Last night when we were talking about this, it was appropriate to end this with communion. And Julie was like, how are you going to end this with communion? And so I kind of laid it out, and I said, I think if we do it this way. When I got here this morning, I was talking to Pastor Mark, and I said, hey, Julie and I were going to end our message with corporate communion. And he goes, it's so funny you said that. He said, this morning, I felt like I was saying we need to do corporate communion, but I didn't want to mess up whatever you and Julie had going on. So it was confirmation with that. And we used to do it every month, corporate communion, but we felt like it was kind of becoming this thing where it was just kind of going through the motions. So we put the communion back there at the prayer bar, and we encourage you. We highly encourage you guys to, at any time during the service, to go back there and do communion. Do it as a family. Fathers, take your family back there and do communion. Do it as married couples. Do it friends. You don't need a pastor to facilitate it. We encourage you guys. We buy those communion kits that you have in your hand. We buy those in bulk. Why? Because we want you to take them home. Because we want to encourage you to do communion at home. And if you aren't doing that, you are missing out. Something we started maybe 4 or 5 years ago doing it, and it's so powerful. There's so much in that. So we want to invite you to take communion with us. I'm going to grab our cups, and you guys can get yours.